Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this event. If I can just ask you if you've got your cameras and stuff. I think we've disabled cameras and microphones, but we'll just keep letting everybody in. We'll give it another 30 seconds just to add the last minuters. But very warm welcome to you to this Cumbria Familiarisation event. As I say, we'll give it about another 30 seconds and then we'll get started. I'll just make sure. Emma, what does it look like to you? Do you just get the person who's speaking on your screen?
I've got all of us on the top row and then the PowerPoint at the thing.
Good. Right, spot on. That was
just
good,
admitting people.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you all very much for coming to this event. Appreciate we are getting a few people that are being added now, but this is the Cumbria Police Familiarisation event. So a very warm welcome to you all from me. My name's Nick Oliver. I'll go through some introductions of myself shortly, but I just want to say a very warm welcome, and I will now hand across to Superintendent Paddy O'Hara, who's going to open up the event for us. The sole purpose tonight is to give you more information. So we do have a Q&A box in there, and Emma Collins is going to be looking at that Q&A box while we go through, and we'll be answering any questions as we go through. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Superintendent O'Hara to open. Sir, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Nick. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to say is welcome, everyone. My name is Paddy O'Hara. I'm a superintendent in Cumbria Police, and I've been in the county and in the force since September of 2024 is when I joined Cumbria. I head up the department known as corporate support, which is all the fun stuff, you might say, or all the back office functions. So it's things like finance, it's human resources, it's learning and development and training, it's driver training, it's fleet, and all those sorts of non-operational but really key support functions in the force. And I hope what that does is that gives you a bit of an understanding that whenever you join the police, whatever your role or whatever your pathway is, that you could end up doing lots and lots of different things. This is the first of these live events, and we're putting it on because we've had some feedback from people who've had the journey that you've are perhaps starting to undertake around selecting a career, coming into an organisation that's maybe brand new to you. Maybe you haven't had somebody in your family that's been involved in policing before, and the whole thing just might be, other than maybe looking at interceptors on the telly or 24 hours in custody or whatever it may be, and it all might be a little bit daunting and a bit of a change. So I'm going to open up the event firstly by welcoming you all into tonight's event. Whatever your intentions and whatever your reasons for wanting to come and speak to us about employment, you are of course very welcome. The main route that we want to publicise tonight is the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship Programme, and that's a 3-year university degree where you can earn as you learn and effectively get a degree and 3 years worth of work experience into policing as you start your career. But we have all of our routes open, or all of our entry routes, open. So we've got the Police Constable Entry Programme. We're also looking for people joining the organisation coming straight in as a detective, although you do a little bit of uniform work as a foundation, but then would move into the detective, investigative kind of side of the business. We're also actively recruiting for special constables. Those are really key, critical volunteers that help us deliver a very safe, or keep Cumbria safe. And we're also recruiting for police PCSOs, community support officers, and later in the year we'll be recruiting for communications officers. None of those are police officers. Those latter two, they are in effectively are police staff or civilian staff, as would be known. I'm going to talk very briefly about my career in policing, because I want to just impart into you that I was perhaps sat where you are 25 years ago. In fact, on the 25th of June 2020 is when I joined the police. So 25 years ago. Let's not split hairs over 2 months, and we'll call it that. And I was in a university, the Queen's University in Belfast, doing a degree in business and IT. I was one of the lucky ones, because I was one of the last students to get through a degree program when there was a grant. So effectively my degree wasn't paid for, and I didn't have to, or it was kind of paid for, and I didn't have to get into a ton of debt to get that. And I was sort of reasonably academically gifted at that point, and I went and did my degree self-funded then. Of course, things have changed. I looked, and you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not from Cumbria. And my voice is somewhat hoarse today because I've spent all of today and all of yesterday shouting at public order training. So I'll not be too long on my intro. But I was sat in Northern Ireland thinking, what am I going to do? The Police Service for Northern Ireland, or the Royal Ulster Constabulary as it was then, wasn't actually recruiting officers. They were going down in numbers after the peace dividend came in 1996, 1994, sort of that time. And what they were doing was they were downsizing from about 8,000 police officers down to 5,000. So anybody that could leave the organisation was going. And I had to look outside in Northern Ireland to go and think, well, I really want to join the police. Where am I going to go and do that? And I was lured at that point in time to the bright lights in the big city of London. I went and applied to the Metropolitan Police, and that was at a time of growth for them. And I got accepted into the Met, and that's where I started my policing career. I was a constable in the West End of London for 4 years, walking the beat, doing all of those things that you would expect. And forgive my Springer Spaniel in the background who's making a special appearance. She's a retired police dog actually, and I'll tell you a little bit about my history in there. So 4 years as a constable, working the West End of London. Bright lights, big city, 24/7 city, loads of cultures that I never got exposed to before when I was in Northern Ireland. It's a pretty sort of it's a pretty singular culture really over in Northern Ireland. So London was a huge immersive experience for me. I then got promoted to sergeant, and I went across to a borough called Brent, which is in the northwest of London, really even more diverse than central London in many respects. And that's when I really first started hitting my first types of major and critical incidents, because it was a hotbed of crime. We had shootings most weekends. It was a real busy place to work, but a real camaraderie was built between the teams there and the staff, whether you were uniform, whether you were detective, because the work was tough and everybody blended in together. I did that for about 8 years, and I also got exposed to public order, and that's my kind of me and love in policing, if you like, is public order policing. And I got to work most of the football grounds around London, so Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, Fulham, a little bit of QPR, and Wembley Stadium, which was obviously on Brent Borough. So I got exposure to lots and lots of work in there. Then got promoted to inspector. Oh, by the way, as a sergeant, I worked across neighbourhoods. I worked in response policing. I worked in a little proactive and a problem-solving team where we were kind of cut loose to just go out and hunt and find criminals and lock them up and do all sorts of stuff like that, and plan drugs warrants. And really, you weren't a slave to the radio. You had the opportunity to go out and be proactive. And I finished there running a team which had 40 officers on it. I think I had 12 unmarked cars with the old, if any of you are old enough to remember Kojak, they would throw the old light on the roof, and it was a magnetic light that would stick on the car, and that's how we sort of policed all in plain clothes, all doing sort of stop and search, drugs stuff. It was absolutely fantastic. And then I became a grown up and became an inspector, and that's when sort of had to take things a lot more seriously. So got a lot more exposure to things like command. Being much more in charge of budgets, being much more in charge of things, being much more accountable. Really, really good. Did that for a couple of years. Got introduced to Arsenal there as a commander, as a public order commander, and I did a number of foreign trips with Arsenal over to overseas teams whenever they would play in Europe. I would be one of the sort of UK police delegation that would go out and see. Just give us 2 secs. I would go out and see those clubs, look after the UK fans abroad, assist with the local policing operation, and I got to go to Portugal, Italy. I even had a trip to Germany out of that as well, so that was pretty cool, pretty good. And I've been involved in most things really, public order wise, large events in London, the riots, the protests that we've had, all the stuff you've seen recently. Bear in mind, I only came to Cumbria 6-7 months ago. Events at Wembley Stadium, I was a commander there, the Olympics, etc. So a really good broad experience into policing. why am I telling you this? Because you're here for a job in Cumbria, not in the Met. Well, the reason is that you might start your career in one place and you might end up somewhere else because you're joining a big family. And that family really, whilst Cumbria is Cumbria, and we look after Cumbria and police there, we often will send our officers out of Cumbria to go and help and support other forces, whether it be supporting the let's say the riots that were down in Liverpool over the summer. We sent detectives down to help the Merseyside police operation. We sent public order asset down to help that. And there are lots of jobs that you can get into, and it's very easy to then move if your circumstances change, where, for example, you might think, well, do you know what? I've done 5, 10, 15, 20 years in Cumbria, whatever it may be. I fancy a bit of a change. I'm going to get myself into a project. I'm going to go and work for the Home Office, seconded in. You are joining that bigger family that is bigger than just your local police station, your local team. It really is a national industry. And one of the other things I've got involved in was dangerous dogs, which is not the most sexiest of subjects in the world, and it can really be a divisive thing. But I've given evidence now to 3 parliamentary inquiries in respect of that. So, been brought in, sat beside the chief constable or the national policing lead, and have to sort of talk about dangerous dogs and what that is like for policing on the ground to MPs and peers. So that is kind of a bit of a summary, a whistle-stop tour of my career. I've come to Cumbria, and actually what I will say is I've had a really warm welcome from the team here, be it the learning and development team or be it the wider police family. Everybody has been so welcoming to me as an outsider who has come and stepped into the organisation, not from the word go. And even in the last couple of days, with public order refreshing, for example, the public order stuff is a little bit different down in London. Everybody's been so accommodating to me as I've caught up with kind of how things are done outside the M25, because there are some subtle differences. So as I say, joining the police family is a huge it's been a huge privilege for me. Really enjoyed it. If I had to do it all over again, I would absolutely do it. And wherever you are in your journey, be it a school leaver thinking about maybe doing our degree apprenticeship, whether you are looking for a new career, a change of career, because of change of circumstances or whatever, you bring valuable life skills to the table. Whether you are a transferee that might be coming from another force or expressing an interest in Cumbria, this is your opportunity to sort of ask a few questions about the force, try and find out a little bit about us, what makes us tick, and to see whether this force is the right fit for you. So wherever you are in the journey, thanks very much for your interest and your inquiry. I'm going to stay on the background and help Nick and Emma coordinate throughout the course of the evening, and I'll put some bits and pieces in the Q&A as they go and do the rest of the presentations. But thanks for joining us tonight. Nick did promise me, he reckoned there would be about 25 people on the call. Not 25, sorry, 50 people on the call. And if you take out Nick, Emma and me, 52. He didn't do too bad on his guesses. And I spent 7 years in the dog section, by the way. That's why the spaniel's jumping up in the background. I've got 2 of them actually, but yeah, I took her with me when I left. So enjoy the rest of the presentation. Please do ask questions. This is your opportunity. We're opening our doors for you tonight. Take on board the bits and pieces that we're saying, and wherever you are in the journey, whether you're just thinking about it, whether you're halfway through, whether you've started it, the very best of luck. And Nick, I'll pass it back to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, sir. Much appreciated. So yes, as we've kind of talked about there's quite a packed agenda tonight, and obviously the superintendent there has kind of covered what we're going to be looking at. Appreciate there's quite a few of you who are partway through the journey, some of you who are literally waiting on an intake starting. So this is really for everybody. So a bit of a breakdown as to what we'll go through. I'll give you a bit of a brief overview of the Chief's vision and the 4Cs shortly, and then we've got my esteemed colleague, Inspector Ed Russell, who is waiting in the background. Appreciating, Ed, you've come in on a different email address, so as soon as it's 20 past, I will activate your camera so you can be added in. We'll then have a little look at the police constable degree apprenticeship that was mentioned and kind of the role of the CBO and then further qualifications beyond that. We'll have a little look through the history of policing, and Emma will then cover training. So it's at this point that those of you that are waiting on intake, you could probably drop out after Emma's bit. So about 7 o'clock, if you wanted to drop out then, because we are then going to look at some tips and tricks around the online assessment centre, the interviews that you'll be doing as you kind of move forwards. We'll have a little look at specialisms, and then we'll have some time for closing and questions at the end. None of us are rushing away. I'll be staying here as long as I need to after we've finished for you to ask any questions. So please do, as we go through, ask the questions in the Q&A, and Emma and Mr. O'Hara will kind of jump in and ask them as we go through, and I will obviously do the same for them. So yeah, very much an agenda that's come from feedback from intakes. I went and sat with 2 of our intakes last week who started at the start of this year and a couple of weeks later, and they have said these are the kind of things that they wanted. So the aim here is to try and better prepare you for the process you go into. Okay. So a bit of an intro. There's a short 2-minute video now from our Chief Constable, just as a bit of a welcome to the event tonight. So this should give you a bit of an idea.
Good evening, I'm Rob Carden, Chief Constable of Cumbria Constabulary. Welcome to this recruitment event designed to showcase the roles we have available across police staff, police officers and volunteers. My vision for the force is to deliver an outstanding police service to keep Cumbria safe. This vision can only be achieved through having the right people working directly in our communities. The purpose of this event is to give you an overview of the constabulary and see for yourselves why the Inspectorate's HMIC FRS graded us as outstanding in building, supporting and protecting the workforce. We've also been identified as good for many other areas, including our ability to respond to calls, managing offenders and investigating crime. This level of performance can only be achieved with dedicated and passionate public servants across the county. Tonight you'll be given an insight into the role of a police officer, the specialisms available, entry routes and how to submit application forms. We've brought together PCSOs, police officers, police staff and volunteers to help answer any questions you might have. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to attend. I wish you every success in your application.
So as the Chief said there, that's his vision for the force, so we'll come on to that shortly. Some of you may have attended our recruitment events a couple of weeks ago. This is a very different type of event. This is very much around familiarisation and helping you to understand the organisation that you're wishing to join. Emma, sorry, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. There's a couple of messages saying that they weren't able to see the video, so we'll try and make sure that we can send a link out afterwards.
Yeah, no worries, thanks. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so for those that couldn't see the video, it was just a short video from our Chief Constable, and I'll talk you through his 4 Cs. So he primarily talked around these 4 Cs, and basically what the Chief Constable is wanting for this county is dedicated and passionate public servants, which is obviously why we're all here. You've all shown an interest in a career in policing because you want to serve the public, and that's why all of the police officers who are on the call are here today. We do it to serve the public and to make their lives better. So to give you a bit of an overview of the kind of Chief Constable's vision for the force, it's quite a simple vision really, to deliver an outstanding police service to keep Cumbria safe. It's quite an obvious one really. It's something we all want to do. We're all here to keep Cumbria safe for the people of Cumbria. All of us are residents of Cumbria. We've all got an interest in keeping this county safe for our own families, our own homes, our own children. So we've all very much got a vested interest in that vision. And it'll become clear later on as to kind of why we're going through this. So the 4 key areas that the Chief has identified as being really important for the people of Cumbria are, first of all, contempt for criminality. So we don't allow criminals in Cumbria, and we will pursue them, and we will pursue them vigorously if we think they are committing crime within Cumbria. That is very much one of our visions. We'll have compassion for our victims, which means answering the phones, keeping victims updated and progressing them through to make sure they get the best possible service from us. We'll make sure we are community focused, so we're actually looking at what the community wants. We'll come back to policing by consent shortly, but we'll make sure that the community are getting what they need from policing. And care for colleagues, we'll make sure that we're protecting and looking after our colleagues, showing a visible and proactive leadership. So as somebody entering, you will be looked after. You'll have a visible leadership from your sergeants and inspectors and beyond, and we'll make sure we're improving the welfare. We don't always get everything right, but as supervisors and leaders, that's our job to make sure that we look after you when you're entering this organisation, and that'll be something we'll very much pick up in Emma's and Ed's presentations very shortly. So how are these things achieved? So we're talking about excellence in basics. We're talking about you having the right kit, the right equipment, the right electronic devices to allow you to do your role. We're talking about having clean equipment. We're talking about having clean boots. We're talking about presenting a really good image to members of the public. We're talking about positive leadership, focusing on what our communities want, as well as innovation and prevention. So making sure we're doing the right things. And we do have some standards and values which won't come as any surprise to anybody, but public service, integrity, inclusivity, and industry. So it was kind of touched on in the Chief's video. For those of you that weren't able to see it, I apologise. So we are an outstanding force for developing a positive workplace. So that comes down to the leadership within the organisation, as well as our professional development units and our occupational health department, and of course our amazing federation, who Inspector Russell is in charge of. We were awarded good in many areas across crime, preventing crime, answering phone calls to the public, managing offenders, and adequate across our crime recording and police powers and public treatment. So all of this comes down to the frontline leaders. It's those people, the frontline officers, so we're talking the PCs, PCSOs, specials, who go out and deliver this service on a daily basis, something you will be doing very shortly, I hope. So they are the ones who are responsible for delivering these. Obviously, good strategic vision, but they're the ones who go out and deliver and are passionate public servants. The figures just on the right-hand side there just give you a bit of an overview of what goes on in the county. People think it's sleepy Cumbria and nothing happens. I can assure you that's not right at all. We had something in the region of 200,000 phone calls last year across our 999 and 101 systems. We searched 10,000 people. We increased our number of arrests by 11%. We have an increase in our positive outcome rates. So Cumbria is a small force, but it punches way above its weight. To give you a very little kind of overview of the organisation, it's quite difficult to see because it's quite a large kind of diagram. But as with every police force, you have a chief constable, deputy chief constable. You then have assistant chief constables and so forth, which will break down into chief superintendents, etc. I can talk to you for ages on this. So if anybody's interested in kind of organisational structures or any geeky stuff like that I quite enjoy, just give me a shout. I'll put my email address in afterwards. Just to make sure that we keep ourselves on time, I will come back to that one afterwards, and I will bring Ed Russell in from our Fed. I will just have to enable your camera, Ed. See if you've dropped off my list. I will find you shortly. Emma, can you see Ed on the list? I think he's dropped off mine.
He should be sitting in the presenters section.
We can probably spare people my face in the kitchen.
There we go.
It's a nightmare.
Thanks, Ed.
Is that over to me?
Yes, please, Ed. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ed Russell. I am an inspector with Cumbria Police. I myself, like Paddy, I'm a transferee. I transferred from Wiltshire about 10 years ago. My career has taken me through response, CID, major crime, covert policing, intelligence, and then into the Federation. So I wanted to talk about a few things to do with the standards of professional behaviour for police officers. And I don't mean this to be a downer in any way, shape or form. I just think it's important for people to know what the expectations are coming into the organisation and the kind of things the Federation deals with. So the Federation is a staff association. We are not able to have a union as police officers because we do not conform with employment law. We are servants of the Crown. So as a result, we have our own set of regulations which we must adhere to. And that deals with our performance, that deals with our attendance, and that deals with all the elements of us being good and capable constables. Now, why does that make a difference and what does that mean? It means you will all be held, we are all held to a higher account than other people, than other members of the public. We have a code of ethics, we have the standards of professional behaviour, and without going into these in any great detail to drill down to them, it's just to say that when you come into the organisation, it's important that you adapt to policing, okay? Because throughout the country, we see a lot of loss of staff in the 0 to 5 years period, and that is usually due to people struggling to adapt the changes that being a police officer requires of you. Stuff like social media, silly things like that. We recently lost somebody to Tinder and the way they behaved online. It's just important that you consider when you come into the organisation that you're going to have to change. And why is that? Well, there's a national scrutiny on police officers. It's seen in the media. Is that to be feared? No, of course it's not. We shouldn't fear scrutiny from the public, and we shouldn't fear standing up for ourselves as police officers. The thing is, if you remember back to the Manchester airport incident, which happened over the last couple of months, the perception on us can be quite skewed. So it's something you have to be aware of and alive to when you come into the organisation. And just, you need to have a good level of resilience to be a police officer. And that's not a negative thing. I'm sure everyone on this call has that, but just you need to come in to the organisation and into policing with your eyes wide open. So what does the Federation do? What do we do for people that are coming through? As I said, we're subject to the standards of professional behaviour, and that can lead to misconduct allegations against police officers. And the Federation is here to support you through that. So if you are subject to something or an allegation is made towards you, we are able to support you with solicitors, with legal assistance, and provide legal help, and provide other partners to take you through that process. It can be quite a lengthy and quite a difficult process to go through. Like I said, we shouldn't ever stay away from being held to that higher account, but with it comes a certain level of scrutiny. You've also got the IOPC, who sit above PSDs in area professional standards departments, who can take on bigger investigations that need to be looked at in relation to police officers and policing. And I don't say any of this to scare anybody. I don't say any of this to be negative. This is simply the reality of policing in a modern era. And if you have questions about what that means, or what it means to be an officer, a Crown servant, or what it means to not be subject to employment law, please just pop it in the chat and I'll come back to it and respond on that. So the Federation is made up of volunteers from within the existing police force. We've got myself as the chair. We've then got a secretary and a conduct and performance lead, and we spend that time looking after officers who find themselves subject to any misconduct or any issues like that. We also offer support with a wide range of other things. If someone has got a grievance against the organisation, if something's gone wrong, or an officer feels that they've not been treated fairly, we can support through that process as well, because as a police officer, you're not allowed to complain about the police. You have to submit a grievance in an internal process. What else do we do? We provide wellbeing breaks through various partners and charities for police officers who are subject to particular trauma or stress. We provide wellbeing grants to officers who are struggling or who may have issues. Basically, anything that impacts your ability to be a police officer, to do your job, you're encouraged to come to the Federation, and we will help you and assist you in any way, shape or form that we can, because we've all been there too. We're all officers as well. We've all been through what you guys potentially will come through joining this organisation. And it is a great organisation, and policing is a very enjoyable career. I've certainly enjoyed mine. Moving on from that, the Federation offers, as I said, other partner agencies. We can assist you with convalescence. We can assist with physiotherapy, with mental health programs, with counselling, with anything you may need supplementary to the occupational health provided by the organisation. There's other stuff there that we can offer, because as Superintendent O'Hara said, policing genuinely is one big family, and if you have an issue, we are there to try and help you as best we can. I'll leave one parting shot, because I know we don't have that much time. You must, when you come into policing, adapt to the organisation. You must understand what policing is, understand the requirements, the expectations, the high expectations of you as a police officer, and adapt to those. And if you've got any questions about that, I'll provide Nick my contact details. You're more than welcome to get in touch with me. And that's it. Thank you very much, Nick.
Thanks very much for that, Ed. Much appreciated. I have had a look through. There hasn't been any questions that have popped up, but I think you hit on a really important point there, particularly our discussion around honesty. And what we will always say to any police officer is just be honest. If anything, if you've done something, be honest about it. And it's far easier for ourselves as leaders within the organisation and for the Federation to kind of look after you and make sure that the right thing's done if you are honest. That's what we expect from police officers and frontline officers. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Obviously, Ed's offered there to kind of provide any further information that you want. The Federation are really good. They do look after us. And for anybody who's maybe considering police staff, they do have their own, they have Unison, who is a similar kind of role, to be fair, to the Federation. So yeah, thanks very much for that, Ed. So what we'll move on to now is the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship. Now, there is going to be about a 4-minute video on here, and I appreciate for some who are on the call, you've not been able to see the video. So if things do go quiet for a minute, it's just because we're watching a video, but I will kind of cover it in the end. There's not a massive amount of videos in this. This is just a kind of last-minute entry. Yeah, so we're going to have a look at the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship. It is a route that we have got open at the moment. We're actively opening police constable degree apprenticeship route. We've obviously got our other routes that the superintendent talked about there, so police constable entry program DC and standard police constable entry program, but we're very keen to fill our next intake in September for the police constable degree apprenticeship route, which, as was kind of mentioned before, it's a 3-year program where you get a degree paid for. So we'll come on to that shortly, but for any of you that are on the other routes, it's definitely something we can do to transfer you across. If you think you've joined a PCEP or you've joined a PCEP DC and you want to do something else, we can definitely help you with that. So I'll play this quick video, which is some perspectives from our PCDA students. I'll just give it a second to load. There we go.
I'm on the PCDA, the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship, and I'm just about a year into it now.
So I'm on the degree apprenticeship course, which basically includes, we do a 3-year degree apprenticeship. So you are studying for a degree alongside being an operational police officer.
So I'm on the Police Constable Degree Apprenticeship scheme, and I'm just starting my 2nd year.
Probably the operational side. As a PCDA student, we do 5 months training like the rest of the cohorts will, and then we go operational. For me, that's been the most enjoyable part, because it's really putting all the skills we've learned from training into practice.
The most challenging part that I've found is actually doing the degree alongside of it. The reason being is because I didn't think I would ever go on to do a university degree. I didn't particularly enjoy the whole academic side of school. I much enjoyed getting my hands stuck in, which is why being in the police sort of appealed to me. But what we've found is as I've been going through, we've learnt so much from the degree side of it. The university is brilliant, and you're able to get good levels of support now with the university to help you get through that degree apprenticeship side of it.
Yes, time management's a big issue, and writing academically is something that I've never done before, so that's been a big getting used to. But overall, it's just improved my grammar, it's improved my perspective on life, and it's gave me that reality as to what it's like being a student as well.
So you usually come up to headquarters and you do some block learning courses, so that'll be with UConn lecturers and some police officers, and you'll learn about the academic side of the job, and then you'll get assessed through the presentations, exams and essays. So it's like your typical university kind of assessments, and you're also assessed operationally as well, so to make sure that you're competent as a police officer.
Definitely need to be organised. You need to work towards a good level of organisation, both in your personal and your professional life. If you struggle with planning, that's the first thing that you really need to address, is being able to go through and put out exactly what you need to be doing at what time.
I wasn't the most academic person in school, so coming into this job and sort of being given assignments in the first 5 months of training was definitely a jump up to what I'd known, especially because I've been out of school for about 4 or 5 years. I'd say if anyone's wanting to join and they're not sure, they've been out of school for a little while, maybe just get up on your reading and things like that. For me, that was my biggest issue, is that I don't really read books, so going into this job now, revision and reading books has helped me massively.
So up at HQ there's a PDE team of professional development, and that's a team of PCs. So they're cops that have been through the job, they've had all the experience, some are also detectives as well, so you can always go to them if you need to ask for any support. And then also you've got UConn lecturers as well, they're all usually retired police officers, so a lot of them have lots of experience in the job. So both if you're having difficulties academically or operationally, you've always got people to go to. I think it's quite unique because not many other organisations, businesses such as that offer a degree whilst paying you to learn the job at the same time.
I didn't think I was ever going to get a degree. University work was never something that appealed to me, and the ability to essentially get a free degree from doing this isn't something you want to miss.
It gives us a level playing field with other services, so people who work in social services or ambulance staff, they all require degrees, so why shouldn't the police have a degree as well? It just gives us that extra footing to say we're on the same level as you, because we work side by side with these people every single day.
So the eagle-eared among you may have heard those dogs barking in the background. That was our dog kennels are very close to where that video was being filmed. So to give you a bit of an idea of the kind of progression, so the 3 officers that you saw there. So Logan, the young lad with the very stylish facial hair, he's now a sergeant in Barrow, recently passed his sergeant's promotion process. We have got Joe Richardson, who is the gentleman with the flag on his jacket. He's a PDU tutor up at Carlisle, and you've got Emily, who is now one of our call handlers within our control room. So we will kind of look at the PCDA route. So for any of you that are interested, we will mention this quite a few times, but it's a free degree. It's a massive, it's free. I don't know how else I can kind of phrase how good that is. It's worth about £60,000. So if you think about all the tuition fees that you would pay to go to university, all of the accommodation fees over the 3 years, Cumbria Police are paying for that degree for you if you enter that PCDA route. You have a 3-year probationary period, so slightly longer than the rest, but again, you're getting a free degree. You do your 23 weeks training at Police HQ, and you kind of get a mix of training from the likes of Emma and her colleagues or the staff at UConn. You do get a 3-week blue light driving course, which is very important for most people. So there's one entry route you don't get that on, but this entry route you get your 3-week blue light driving course. Amazing course. We're supposed to have PC Louise Stubbins here tonight to kind of talk through her experiences, but unfortunately she's not able to be with us. But I'll kind of use her as a bit of a case study to go through. So Louise was a police constable degree apprenticeship officer. She'd spent time as a special, and when I spoke to her before this event, she did university. She did a foundation degree a few years ago and very much gave up on the idea of university. Didn't think it was for her, wasn't really interested. So she became a special, and then she saw the advert for when we first started doing the police constable degree apprenticeship program and thought, this looks really interesting, I'll give this a go. So Louise did 3 years worth of training. She did a degree, and one of the benefits that Louise has actually seen, and these are her words, not mine, is the massive impact that academic learning has on policing and your application of powers. To be honest with you, I was a little skeptical when PCDA came in. I thought, do you need a degree to be a police officer? And I've eaten my own words now. That programme and the entry route, particularly with the skills and experience that you will learn through it, you won't get anywhere else. You can apply the academic principles to policing using things like hotspot policing to help reduce crime and actually make life better for people. And what else could we want really as police officers? So again, using Louise as a bit of an example, she has now moved on to do a master's degree, which again, it's free. It's been paid for by the constabulary. So she's currently undertaking that at the moment, which is, I think, a 2-year program. So she is going to have a level 7 qualification, and she's not had to spend a single penny of her own money. During that time, she's learned to be a police officer. She's developed her skills, and she is now what we call a community beat officer, which we'll kind of come to shortly. It's one of our neighbourhood policing officers. So she gets to use that skills and experience that she's built up over that time to be able to kind of improve policing in her local area. Emma, are there any questions or anything I need to kind of go through just before I jump on?
No, you've nothing yet.
Yeah. Cool, thank you. So just a few examples on the screen there. Appreciate the people that are on the small screen, but these are some of the things and some of the topics our previous police constable degree apprenticeship program students have done. So as part of your degree, you will do a dissertation. It is now 6,000 words, I think, Emma, isn't it, where it was 10,000 words. So it has been reduced. But to give you a bit of an idea, these are all the topics that they've looked at. So things like managing risk, harassment and stalking, the impacts of domestic abuse in the criminal justice system, football disorders, sex offender management, misogyny in policing, road deaths. And quite a lot of these will then get used as they'll get used in the organisation, to prove points and to prove cases, and they actually get presented to our chief officers. So there'll always be a senior officer who will come and look at this, and the ideas do get used across the organisation. So it's not just that these get done by yourselves and then put in a drawer. They very much get used, they get referred to, and they are massively relevant in today's policing. I recently completed a master's degree, which I paid for. I didn't get it paid for, unfortunately, but it's really helped me in the application of my role as an inspector. So very much, if any of you aren't on this route and are interested, please just drop us an email. We'll stick the email in the end of the presentation. So neighbourhood policing then. I'll quickly come on to that before I go across to Emma. So the picture there you've got, again, is our Chief Constable, recently given a neighbourhood policing pledge. So the government, the new Labour government, is wanting to spend a lot of money on neighbourhood policing. And it's an option that you will have when you get into policing to be able to look at a career or a role within neighbourhood policing after you've finished your probationary period. To give you a bit of an overview, we look at the neighbourhood policing pledge, which I'm having to read off my other screen here, so I do apologise. So we'll have dedicated neighbourhood policing officers, so specific police officers within communities, specific named police officers. You'll be able to access those police officers. There'll be an increased dedicated neighbourhood policing resource. We'll have a rural crime team. In a county such as Cumbria, it's essential to have a rural crime team to tackle things like diesel thefts, trailer thefts, and all that kind of stuff. Engagement and visibility, having those police officers out in the communities. Everybody we speak to says they like to see a police officer. They like to have them in their communities to feel reassured. Tackling crime and antisocial behaviour, making roads safer, and developing our neighbourhood workforce. So they are but a few of the things. So as we mentioned before, Louise is a community beat officer, and there's quite a few of them across the force now, and some of this money from the government is being used to enhance our neighbourhood policing and get us some more community beat officers. So they, unlike other officers, aren't dedicated to a response team. They're not a slave to the radio. They don't have to go out to jobs all the time. They are allowed on their own patches to solve issues. So you might be sitting there thinking, well, actually, while I don't want to be a response police officer for my whole career, I do want to still be a police officer, and I want to do something different. This is something different. The community beat officer role is what we would call a previous neighbourhood policing constable. So they go around, they look at issues within their own community, make communities safer, because response policing officers tend to just go around from job to job to job, and they don't tend to be able to kind of deal with things as quickly as the community beat officers would. So it's an option for you. Again, we can give you some further information. The real purpose of tonight then was to kind of give you an overview of the role of police officer. So I'll move on to Emma very shortly to kind of go through her bit, but we wanted to be really honest with you. We wanted to kind of let you know, because there's things that people don't realise when they come into policing. So comes as a surprise to some people, but we work 24 hours a day. We have to work nights, we have to work Christmas, we have to work holidays, any kind of public holiday, Diwali, Easter, etc. We are a 24/7, 365 days a year service. That's not to say you will work 24/7, 365, but the shift patterns does cover those days. But people do come in with a bit of a surprise that they have to work nights. So I'll set that out now. Police constables do have to work nights. You will have to see some terrible things. We've all those on the call, police officers, I have seen some terrible things. You have to deal with people at the worst point in their lives. If you think for yourselves, when have you actually called the police? Well, the police tend to only turn up at the worst point. Some pictures I've included there: serious road traffic collisions, buildings on fire, people dying. But the way that I see it is, as a police officer, I can give that family that last little bit of respect that they need in the worst time of their life. I can walk to their house and I can explain in a calm and compassionate way what's happened. They don't want to hear that message, but that's our job to make sure that they understand that we are going to do everything for their loved one that's been hurt, injured, or killed. And that's something I take very, very seriously, as I'm sure that everybody else on this call does. It's very similar to what the boss said. I would do it all again. I absolutely would do it all again. And it's a very, very worthwhile job. So just talking on our shift patterns then quickly. So our response shift pattern there. So it's a 10-week pattern, and you do 6 days on, 4 days off. So you will do usually 2 early shifts, 2 back shifts, and 2 night shifts. It's a lot better than the patterns we've worked previously. I know Emma will have worked the same pattern as me, where we used to do a 5-week pattern and it was hideous. This pattern is quite good, particularly with the fact you get your 4 days off. You do a kind of mix of 8 and 10-hour shifts, and that kind of runs over that 10-week pattern. There are some times where you will work later back shifts than you normally would over a weekend, but they come, I think, every 5 weeks. So for those who are coming to enter CID, it's a 10-week shift pattern. It's 6 on, 4 off again, but there's very few nights in the CID shift pattern. So CID officers, DCs, will work a set of nights once a year. They'll do a set of nights where they're covering the whole force, but essentially you will work predominantly days and early back shifts as a CID detective. There are expectations that you will obviously work longer shifts as and when required, but that's kind of the basic pattern there for you. But as we talked about, it's a really rewarding job. There's quite a few jobs that I've kind of put on there that have happened recently. So an example from my past, when I was a DC for a year, I investigated a serious child sex offence, and the offender got 10 years in prison, and he is still in prison now. And I feel really proud that I achieved that for those young victims, that I took that person away and they're now not able to hurt anybody else. But you look at that screen there, you can see many things that we do. This is just from the last couple of weeks. £550,000 worth of cannabis seized. We've got a man caught on the M6 with cocaine. We're often stopping vehicles and seizing large amounts of property from them. A driver there has been jailed for 6 years for killing somebody in a collision. We've got officers putting doors in. We deal with elderly people who are being scammed. There's a massive I'm amazingly proud when we get the results like this and we protect people. That's the whole reason why we're here. So what I'll do is I'll come back to the entry routes afterwards, and I will hand over now to Emma to go through the learn and development slide. So over to you, Emma. Thanks very much.
Hello, evening everybody. Just a little bit about myself before we start then. So I started my life in policing by doing the professional policing degree at University of Cumbria. I did a 3-year programme and then joined the police as a special for 2 years. This gave me an insight into what it was like and that this role was definitely for me. And then joined the police officially in 2013 and went to Barrow for my first year, which was incredible, very, very busy. And then moved back to Carlisle, where the rest of my career has been. I have been on response. I've been in the interviewing department in custody. I have worked in professional development unit, looking after all of the students. And for the last 16 months, I've been working as a trainer. So I try to cover, that's the way my career's gone. As the inspector has said, I can't recommend PCDA enough. If the policing career is what you want, I am still 15 years on paying off my student loan. So it's definitely a win-win. I would have done that if I had the opportunity back then. So basically, if we go on to the next slide, sir. Thank you. Okay, so if you're on the PCDA degree route, it would be 23 weeks up at headquarters with ourselves. The PSEP routes are 22 weeks. We are looking at reducing it to 20, but as it stands at the moment, it is 22 weeks. So you will come up to headquarters and spend time with us. You'd be learning the legislation, your powers, policies, being able to do practical exercises in a safe learning environment. So we do lots of role plays, as you can see from the photos down the side. And we've got numerous role plays that you get to learn. You get 1 week's annual leave during the period up with us, and that's usually in the offer letter explaining whereabouts that week mandatory leave will be put. And you get 2 weeks of personal safety training as well during your time with us to make sure that you can use your equipment properly and be safe and lawful while doing it. And then I think if you click again, boss. Yeah, I feel like something's missing, but it's fine. Okay, so uniform and standards is, oh, there we go. Okay, I knew there's something missing. Okay, so while you are at headquarters with us, your assessed work to make sure that you are competent is that you have to complete and pass 2 multiple choice exams during the time period, and you also have to complete 2 assessed role plays. These are individual role plays to make sure that we can test your capabilities and knowledge. We also have opportunities externally, so we'll go to the mortuary, get you used to that kind of thing to be able to deal with that side of the job. We'll also go to court and make sure that you're comfortable standing up in court and being challenged. And on some occasions, we are able to go and do joint exercises with University of Cumbria. So the top and bottom photo that is shown there are from some exercises with the paramedics that we did over in Lancs, which was very fun. Okay, next slide, boss. Thank you. Okay, so while you are a police officer, the standards are very important to us. It is black shirt and cargo trousers. All uniform is supplied by us. The only thing that you do need to buy is a pair of black boots. They're not to be steel toe, but they are to be durable, to be able to be comfortable while you are up and down the beat. And although there are various ones out there that are cheaper, ideally do go for quite an expensive pair purely for the amount of time you are going to be wearing them, and you do not want to have sore feet. So for ladies or gentlemen with long hair, it's to be tied neatly in a low bun at the back. Short hair is to be neatly above the collar line. Moustaches and beards are to be trimmed and appropriate. And nails are to be short, plain coloured or natural. And jewellery is to be kept to a minimum. So this is just 1 pair of studs, no facial jewellery. I apologise, I've got a child that's just come in. Okay, so we also have access to various things. So we've got accommodation on site that is available. This is based on the travel policy, which is currently set at 35 miles plus. If you live that location from Penrith headquarters, you are eligible to be looking at accommodation. So once offered a post and accepted, you to email the travel desk to request a room and provide the details of your cohort date. There is also access to gyms across Cumbria. It's £5 a month that comes out of the wages once you've signed up and the induction's done. It goes on your fob access, which you have your warrant card, and you can use any of the gyms within the whole force. Next slide, boss. Thank you. Okay, so the most important thing while we are a police officer, we do expect hard work, dedication and commitment, teamwork, honesty and integrity, and the list does go on. I could go on for ages about it. As Inspector Russell had mentioned earlier, you are held to a higher standard as a police officer, and you're expected to act with courage, respect and empathy and public service on and off duty. So one thing I will point out is that when you do become a police officer, you will find that certain friends disappear. Potentially you move away from people. Potentially family may have issues with it, but it's about that family and vocation of being a police officer that molds you as a person. It's making sure that you don't put inappropriate things on Facebook, comment on things. It's making sure that you are appropriate at all times so that you can't put our force into any kind of question. And that's why we all strive to make sure that we do serve the public and look our best at the same time. So hopefully everything goes all well for the 3 of you that are on here, and I meet you at headquarters. Thanks, sir.
Thanks very much for that. I mean, you did very well then. I would have got very distracted, so well done. Thank you very much. Okay, so we're going to move on now to having a look at the things that we do to support you. So joining policing is still a fantastic career. We just wanted to make sure you're entering this with your eyes open. So there are numerous things that are available to support you. So Emma's kind of already touched on some of them. So obviously we've got the gym that's available. We have a force mentoring scheme, so that can support you through whatever you want to do within policing. So like myself and the boss, if you want to go for a promotion, the mentoring scheme's there to support that. You might want to look at firearms, you might want to look at roads policing, public order. There are plenty of things that are available, and the mentoring scheme is there to help and support you to reach your ambition and your goal. We have just recently, this month, started what's called a fleet solutions. So you can get some tax relief if you want to lease a car through fleet solutions. It's quite a new thing for us. Other forces have been doing it for a long time, but you can do that through NHS fleet solutions. So you get cheaper. So I say you get tax reduction on getting a car, which covers kind of maintenance, tyres, all that kind of stuff. So that's something you will have access to. We have some really good trauma support. So the kind of thing I've included in the middle there, we have what's called a traumatic events checklist. As a police officer, you will go and see traumatic things. As I say, you will see potentially dead bodies. You will go and deal with road traffic collisions, all of which will have an impact on yourself. It will be very, very difficult for you. But we've got a support in place to help you get through that. We have all on the call seen things. We've all had to have support across the time that we've been in the police. And there's nothing wrong with asking for that support. And that support very much is there to help you. We also have what's called an inclusion hub. So we recognise, obviously, in policing that not everybody's the same. So the inclusion hub provides lots of support for some of those areas that you can see there. So people who enter who've got chronic illnesses, who have got a family member who's got cancer, it might be a carer, who have got family, who have suffered domestic abuse, who have got mental health issues, who are from the LGBTQ plus community. There's plenty of support available. And what's included within that inclusion hub is access to people who can support you with all of those areas. So if you join policing and you've got any of the issues around anything that's kind of discussed there, you can go onto that site totally without your line manager ever knowing and get access to those sites and get access to that support that's available for you. We also do have what's called the Chief's Promise. So our Chief Constable, Mr. Carden, has signed a leadership promise, and he basically says that everybody will adhere to these as the leaders within the organisation, and demonstrating that excellent leadership, excellence in the basics, and that's something he expects from all police officers, as do I of the police officers that I work with or work for me. I have expectations around clean boots, clean uniform, presentable and ready for work. That's kind of the basics that we expect. You also get, so one of the pictures you can see here is a live streaming body worn video, so from a company called Axon, and it's a fantastic, fantastic bit of kit. So all frontline officers have access to those, and they are live streaming, so your supervisors can live stream you, and the likes of myself when I work up in the control room, I can live stream that. It's all about keeping you safe, so you can use those whenever you need to, and it's used to record evidence, so they are absolutely fantastic. The picture just below, you all get a laptop. So as frontline officers, you get access to a laptop that allows you to do all of your paperwork on the road, and it gives you real access to our systems. And we have got the likes of Teams and stuff like that, that again is there to absolutely support you and to make sure that you can kind of use your technology on the move. We've just recently embarked on a system called Mark 43. So we've just had that embedded as of last month, which is an American system, but it's designed to make life easy for our frontline officers. So it looks at things like crimes, missing people. So you will all get to use that when you join. We also have something for those of you on the call that are from the armed forces. So we are very much accepting of people from the armed forces, and we have what's called the Armed Forces Support Network and the Armed Forces Covenant within policing. We absolutely appreciate the skills that those from the armed forces actually bring into policing. So we have specialist people that are kind of linked across there. And we all of us on the call, the police officers, went and did a recruitment event a couple of weeks ago over at Catterick. It just feels like it's been that long. We went over and we talked to people who are wanting to join policing from the armed forces. So we very much encourage everybody from every walk of life. Any questions, Emma or Boss, that I need to cover? Or are you quite happy?
Just typing away in the background to some of the questions.
Okay, cool.
We might even be answering the same one, who knows, depending on who's fast enough.
I was just thinking that's
Okay, thank you. So just to quickly nip back to something I talked about before. So one of the most important things I think about policing is kind of where it came from and how we got to where we got to. So the picture on the left-hand side there is Sir Robert Peel, and you might recognise the name because that's where the term bobbies and peelers came from. So Robert Peel, who was the founder of what is now the Metropolitan Police Service way back in the early 1800s, but we still very much use the passion and the principles that Sir Robert Peel had for policing. So the public are the police are the public. So we police by consent in this country, and it is an absolute fundamental part of what we do. No other country polices like we do, and we are seen as a pinnacle of policing because we use the community to help us to solve crimes. People want to speak to us. Appreciate that some people don't, but we still police by consent. Now that doesn't mean that we go and ask people if they want force to be used, or not ask them if we want them to be arrested, but it's about the wider community. So what would the community expect of me as a police officer to do? Well, they'd expect me to protect them, they'd expect me to prevent crime, and they'd expect me to protect life. It's quite simple. So Robert Peel had 10 different policing principles that he kind of came up with, so none of them will surprise you. So to prevent crime, to recognise that the powers of the police to fulfil their functions and duties is dependent on the public approval. So that's that consent I talked about before. Recognising about secure and maintaining public approval. Recognising that the extent of which the cooperation of the public can be secured diminishes proportionately. So if we don't do the right thing by the public, they will not trust us. And we need that trust to allow us to do our job. We seek and preserve public favour. We don't pander to public opinion. We will make sure we're doing the right thing for the whole of the public. There are numerous other ones that are in there, so maintaining relationships that are appropriate, recognising the need for strict adherence to policy and procedure, and the test for the police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder and not the visible evidence of police action. I think that's a really, really important one. So people might say, well, I haven't seen a police officer, so they don't do anything, but actually you do. You driving around that police car and solving that crime is you absolutely doing something. You will be dealing with, there won't always be loads of you, but you will be going out there and you'll be protecting the most vulnerable people in society. So I really like that quote, recognising that the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder and not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with them. So I think that's a really important one. Okay, so as we kind of said at the start, for those who have already passed the interview and the assessment process, you are very, very welcome to stay. This may be relevant to you, particularly around the competency and values framework, but if you need to drop out because you've got something else, that's fine. If you haven't gone through these yet, what we're going to do is we're going to cover what the competency and values framework is. We're going to look through the interviewing process and we're going to look through the assessment centre process as well. Okay. So the competency and values framework. So hopefully you'll have all heard of it. If you haven't, make sure that you get a copy, get it downloaded, just type into the internet, competency and values framework, College of Policing, and you'll be able to get a copy. So what it is, as you can see there from the diagram on the screen, is a range of 6 competencies and 3 values. It has been changed recently. We used to have more values and it used to be a little bit more confusing, but the competencies and values are what drives everything we do in policing. So when you go to your interviews, you go to your assessment centre, you will need to understand the competency and values framework. Now, I don't mean you need to parrot that out in level 1 of this is this. That's not what we need you to do. So we'll talk through some tips and tricks to help support you with the competency and values framework. So there are 6 competencies. So we analyse critically, which is all about looking at information. It's about delving into your decisions. It's about understanding why you're doing what you're doing. So even as simple as making a cup of tea, you can delve into that and analyze that critically. You can go, right, well, actually, to make my cup of tea, I need to go into the cupboard. I need to get a spoon. I need to get my tea bag out. I need to boil the water in the kettle. I need to get the cup out. Things like that. That's the depth of critical analysis we'll be looking at within this assessment process. We have innovative and open-minded, so it's about bringing fresh ideas and new perspectives. So you might be looking and thinking of ways that we can do things that are much more effective than have ever been done before. Okay, so it's about bringing. It's not about bringing in sort of random ideas and testing them out. It's just about bringing in something new that you think might work from your previous experience, because we fully understand you will have previous skills and experience within policing. The next one is we are emotionally aware. So it's about understanding ourselves and understanding the people that we work with. So actually, emotional awareness is understanding that if somebody comes in and they've had a bad time at home, they bring that into work with them. It's about supporting those people and putting the right things in place to keep them safe. We take ownership. So that's about development. It's about solving problems. It's about looking after people. We collaborate. It's all about working together. So working with other people, working with other agencies, working with your colleagues. And support and inspire is about not just about leadership, because we're all leaders within this organisation, regardless of rank or role. It's about supporting other people. So it could be as a new student, you're supporting somebody else on your cohort. You are inspiring them to do their best, because we only work really well as a team. It was kind of mentioned at the start, it's a police family. So we are there to support and inspire each other. So that's the competencies, and the values around the inside are what you're expected to adhere to. So public service will come as no surprise. I've gone on about that all night. We need to have public service. We need to have the public at the heart of everything we do. It's a really, really important process, having the public at the heart. We need to have courage. So we need to be honest. It's difficult sometimes, but we need to be honest. As I say to every team that I work with, I can always help them if they're honest. If people start to lie and start to mislead people, there's no helping people who do that. People make mistakes. We fully understand that. You need to own up to those mistakes. And respect and empathy, that's about looking after people. It's about having respect for other people's views, and it's about supporting other people. So whether that's your colleagues or the people that you work with, those are the values that kind of enshrine everything that we do within policing. So there's a very short video now on the ethical policing requirements. So that'll kind of just go into depth a bit more on the values.
Ethical policing requires courage, respect and empathy, and public service. These principles help us make and reflect on our professional decisions. As policing professionals, we commit to making, communicating and being accountable for decisions and standing against anything that could bring our profession into disrepute. Encouraging listening to and understanding the views of others and seeking to recognise and respond to the physical, mental and emotional challenges that we and other people may face. Working in the public interest, fostering public trust and confidence, and taking pride in providing an excellent service to the public. Ethical policing principles help people in policing do the right things, in the right way, for the right reasons.
And I don't think anybody can disagree with kind of what we've discussed there, because it's the reasons why all of you are probably sitting here in this webinar and wanting to join policing. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you some tips and skills around the competency and values framework and how to really understand it. So what you'll see when you go onto it and you download a copy is you will see that, for example, there, public service, it'll give you an example of what public service looks like. Okay. Now, what I find really, really helpful to do in this scenario, and I've done my crude Blue Peter drawing on the right hand side, you can see there, is I will get a blank sheet of paper for every single one of them. So for public service here, what I've done is I've written public service in the middle. I've had a read of everything on the left hand side within the CVF, and I've written what it actually means to me, because a lot of it might not make massive amount of sense to you, but you need to translate it to what it means to yourself. So for example, the value of public service to me means having the public at the heart of everything we do, seeking feedback, keeping my own training up to date, improving the service that we give through reflection and training, being honest, even if that's unpopular, keeping people informed, and speaking with respect. So that's just what it means to me. Might mean something different to you, but I really recommend you get that piece of paper and you do that. So do that for your values. And then your competencies are ever so slightly different. So as you saw here with your values, there's a bit more, it's a bit more wordy, bit more kind of bullet pointy. But what we have with all of the competencies, so the bits around the outside that we talked about, are different levels. So you have level 1 competencies, which are relevant to yourselves as frontline police officers and PCs who are applying for this role. You have level 2, which are kind of middle managers, and then sort of sergeant level, and then you have level 3, which is sort of inspectors, chief inspectors, superintendents, and they've all got slightly different things, but when you're looking at it, you want to look at level 1. So again, I've used we are innovative and open-minded as a bit of an example here. So what I've done again is I've written it down. So to me, being innovative and open-minded within policing means keeping an open mind, researching, so very much with the PCDA approach I've already discussed, researching what's going to happen, what I'm going to do within my role, reflecting on my own practices. Now, reflection is a really, really important tool for a police officer. Understanding, and it sounds very cringy, but keeping a diary, even if that's a Word document, just around the things that you've seen and done. Emma and her team will very much encourage you to do that when you go through. I know as part of the initial recruitment process and as part of your initial training, you'll be encouraged to do reflection. You're encouraged to do it if you go for promotion and any other role. So reflection is a really, really important tool. And to reflect, you just simply need to write down what's happened, what you think about it, and what you could have done differently. Take good practice from elsewhere. So whether we're looking at other organisations, so to me that means maybe looking at the ambulance service, the fire service, to kind of bring in best practice into policing, that we adapt to change, that we share ideas, that we make improvements, and that we, again, as I say, keep an open mind. So that's just one of the tips that's worked really well for me around the competency and values framework. Mr. O'Hara, have you got any further tips around the CVF that you've picked up over time that you think might be helpful?
I think there's 2 bits for me really. The first bit is answer the question. So the interview will start with the question, but it'll be framed into, for example, one of the competencies, if you like. We can only score you on what you tell us. But if you don't answer the question in the first place and just give us, for example, an example of something that might fit the competency framework and be a load of buzzwords, you ain't going to get the marks for it. So that would be my advice to you is, answer the question. And then if we need to explore or expand into certain areas, we've got probing questions that we can ask you to try and draw the information out of you. The interview is not designed to throw trick questions at you. It's designed to get you to tell us about maybe what you have done or what you would have done or how you would problem solve and manage and deal with some things. And we will then try and draw that evidence out of you to give you every chance of succeeding. We don't want people to come and sit before us and be stumped. We want to try and get that evidence out of you. So the process in and of itself will be sort of friendly in nature in that regard, and we want everybody to get through it and succeed. But you've got to put the groundwork in, you've got to do the research. And my I think strong advice would be, if you can structure your answers in a way that it tells us kind of what the situation was, so we can understand the problem, what your objective was, what you were trying to do, the actions that you took, and any learning or the result that came out the other end of it. That's the framework that I find to be particularly helpful and useful. There are online support groups that will help you with that. If I know a lot of our candidates will join the Blue Light consultancy one that I certainly keep a little eye on every now and again. Other ones are available that can take you through and do masterclasses to kind of help you with that process, because it is different to a typical job interview. That's what I will say.
Thanks, sir. Thanks very much for that. Okay, so that's the kind of competency values framework and just some useful tips from myself and the boss that we've kind of picked up over time. Emma, is there anything beyond that for you that you would like to cover on CVF?
Just to make sure that when you're answering the question, it's about stuff that you have done rather than other people. We want to make sure that you're making the decisions and how you're coming across the problem and fixing it, rather than, oh, well, I went and told my supervisor and stuff like that. It's about you taking the lead, and just that if it's not written down, we can't mark it. So even if you think it's really trivial and you think, oh, well, we would expect that we would understand that you've done that, it's making sure that you just say it out loud, as much information as possible for us to give us a fair chance of marking.
Cool. Thanks very much, Emma. That's much appreciated. So we'll quickly move on to now the Online Assessment Centre, or the OAC. So it's probably quite different. So myself and Emma would have done the old search. I'm sure, Boss, you'll have done something quite similar. So since COVID, the college have moved to an Online Assessment Centre, or an OAC. So some of you may be at that stage. You've maybe kind of done that stage already, but we obviously don't get privy to the questions that they're going to ask or anything like that. So the tips and tricks we're going to give you here are purely from the College of Policing guidance, and very much what kind of Emma and the boss have said there. Answer the question. If they're asking you a question, reflect on it and think about it. There's never an issue with you being asked a question and taking a few seconds to think. So we'll quickly give you an overview here of the assessment process. So first of all, obviously you make an application to us as the police force. You'll then get sifted. So we'll do a national and a local sift, and you'll then go on to your online assessment process, which is run through the College of Policing. So they put it out to an external company. It's all done online. So you'll go through a competency-based interview, which from speaking to some candidates recently is a bit strange because you'll have to film yourself. There'll be no physical person there. You'll film yourself answering some questions, and then somebody will assess it afterwards. So you're almost talking to yourself. So it's quite a strange method, and a lot of the feedback I've had from the frontline officers is they messed up, or maybe the doorbell went, or something as simple as that. Make sure you get yourself in a kind of comfortable and quiet place. So you do your competency-based interview first, you do your situational judgment test, which we'll look at in a second, and your behavioural styles questionnaires. So again, there are plenty of resources out there to kind of help you with this, and plenty of companies. But the biggest issue for me was particularly around the competency-based interview. So we'll come on to, again, some tips and tricks for that shortly. So to prepare for your situational judgment test, it'll be across all of the competencies that we talked about before. So you need a good understanding of those. So similar to what I've kind of said to you before, be in a quiet location. Make sure you've got time to complete the assessment. Don't do it in between other things. Wait until the house is clear, or even go somewhere quiet that you can do this away from home, whether that's a library or work or wherever you need to be to kind of get it done. With the situational judgment test, you're presented with different information and scenarios, and you need to explain what your main priority is with that situation, what the information is that you're looking at. You need to consider any likely consequences or outcomes from those situations, and that's really designed to test your skills and knowledge as a police officer. Understand that you're not a police officer, but you bring in lots of skills, so you bring in those decision-making skills. You need to be able to answer questions, because when you're out there as a frontline response officer, you will have to make decisions, and you'll have to make them quickly. It's going to be the difference between saving somebody's life and not, arresting somebody and not. There's a lot of different things that you'll come across, so you'll be presented with some different things, and you'll have to do kind of ratings and scales. You need to rate each action independently, and you can allocate different ratings and sort of the same ratings to different questions. What we will do is I'll stick in a link to the College of Policing guidance into the chat shortly, which is really good and really helpful, which will kind of get you through. We've also got some YouTube videos from the College of Policing as well that explain exactly how you can kind of prepare for those tests. So you then do a behavioural styles questionnaire, or BSQ, and this actually looks at all of the values and all of the competencies as well. So what it's looking at is, again, for you to get 80 statements, and you need to grade them from a 1 to a 7 as to whether you completely disagree, which is a 1, or completely agree, number 7. And depending on your responses, you may also be asked to rank statements in terms of which is most like you. So they want to understand what you're like. They want to understand what makes you tick. They want to see if you're the right person to be a police officer, if you've got the right views, the right opinions. So that is very much what that's designed to do. So again, that's online. It looks through all those competencies, and it'll be looking for those behaviours, particularly around public service, particularly around you deliver, support and inspire and things like that. So just on reasonable adjustments then, so there are not many reasonable adjustments that can be offered for the online assessment centre, but they can offer accommodations that are supported by the online system for those of you that have sight difficulties or dyslexia, etc. So text-to-speech software, coloured overlays, Zooms, and navigating most of the website using just a keyboard. So there are plenty of reasonable adjustment options that are available, and you basically take that at a time of your own choosing. If you do have any specific issues that you think haven't been picked up here, please contact us directly and let us know, and we'll see what additional things we can do for you. So you can get reasonable adjustments for your online assessment, and you can also get that for your interview, which we'll come on to shortly. Okay, so interviews. So the boss talked through then the SAW model. So there are a couple of different types of model that you can use to answer questions. So one of the ones that I prefer, so there's two that I quite like, are the context, action and result and learning model, which is the CARL model, or the STAR model, which is the situation, task, result and learning. That it should be result rather than learning, but it's the same sort of thing. So it's STAR with a double R. So you need to use these in order to answer your questions. So myself and Emma have done some interviews recently, as have myself and the boss, and we really notice when people haven't got a structure. So say, for example, using the Carl model, again, going back to my making a cup of tea analogy. So what I'm going to tell you about today is making a cup of tea. So what I did is I went to the cupboard, I picked out the cup, I picked out a tea bag, I put the spoon in, I put the hot water in, then I put the milk in after I'd taken the tea bag out, obviously, because that would be criminal if you didn't do that. And the result was I had a piping hot cup of tea. My learning here is the fact that I don't like tea. So next time it's going to be coffee. It's as simple as that to get your answer that you've got, your example, into something like that. So we might not always ask you for an example. We might ask you for your opinion on something, but it's always good to use a model if you ask for an example. Now, most of the questions we ask, well, without telling you what the questions are, if you've got an example, great. What we're asking you to do is have a bank of examples. Don't try and prepare for any questions that we might not ask you. Have a bank of examples in the background and have them ready for questions we ask. Because if you try and prepare for questions, we might ask you a question that you didn't expect, and it'll really make you flustered. So one of the key things, as the boss said before, was first of all, answer the question. Do not worry about asking for it to be repeated or taking some time. One of the things that I do in interviews is when I get asked the question, I'll say thank you to the panel, and then I'll have a drink and even take 10 seconds. And the panel will not be awkward about that because they want you to succeed. So take your time. If you need to ask for the question to be repeated, just do that. It's absolutely fine. And then use one of these structures. So either Carl or STAR, as I've kind of been through there. So again, very, very similar structure. I find Carl is much better for backwards and forward facing questions. STAR's all right for forward. So when we say backwards and forward facing, a forward facing question is, please tell me how you would make a cup of coffee. And a back facing question is, please tell me about how you did make a cup of coffee. So very similar to what Emma said there. Just make sure you're telling us what you did. We need to know what you did in an example. People saying we did this and we did that doesn't score anything, because we need to see how, and I've said we there, I need to see how you've behaved within that example that you're giving. Okay, so the key things from me today for your interview: understand the CVF, get it written down on that piece of paper, really know it and understand it. Do not just rabbit the CVF back to us, because we know what it is. We know you know what it is, but we don't just want to hear that you collaborate. We want you to have those behaviours and to answer your question around that using an appropriate structure. So again, simple advice, very, very simple advice. ATQ, answer the question that's being asked. Okay. You will score nothing if you don't answer the question. So when we interview people, we have a scaling of 1 to 5. So you need to get 3s across all the 6 questions that we ask you to be able to pass. Okay. So it doesn't mean that you can't dip at one place and pick it up in another, but try and get consistent across the board in those questions. Take your time. While we don't time you, we say roughly 5 minutes a question. If you wanted to practice with a family member, you can. You can just sit there and answer back the question using the structure, and it'll really come across really well. Have your bank of examples there that are ready and waiting for you. So make sure you've got that bank of examples that are sitting there, and you can, when you get asked a question, it just comes out like muscle memory and you can give your example. We will help you, as the boss said. We've got prompts and probes. So if we feel like you're going off, we will ask you and try and bring you back. We all follow the same set of questions, so you'll get the same service from everyone you go to. And it's the same advice for the College of Policing interview. Just take your time, albeit those interview times are specifically timed. So you need to make sure you keep an eye on your timer. But with us, when we do the in-force interview, we are quite relaxed around it. We will stop you if you're going on 15 minutes, but if you're kind of doing 6-7 minutes a question, that's absolutely fine. Okay. Emma and Sarah, any questions I need to cover? Anything you want to cover on these? No?
Not on this, no.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, so that's the interview side of things. So just a kind of quick overview on vetting then, which is a big thing at the moment within policing. So the 2 people, if you can call them that, in the middle were police officers and are now serving lengthy prison terms. So you've got on there some horrific criminals who committed atrocious offences against women, particularly the murderer of Sarah Everard, Wayne Cousins, and David Carrick, both who are serving lengthy prison sentences, but were both police officers. And they have caused significant mistrust in the public in policing. They damaged policing beyond measure. and the things that they did were absolutely horrific. So we now have significant vetting to prevent people like that from ever being police officers. They shouldn't have ever been, and they shouldn't ever see the light of day again. We do lots and lots of checks to make sure that the people who are serving the public and who are going to see some of the most vulnerable people in our society have been checked properly. So as part of your recruitment process, you will go through vetting. It may be quite a frustrating process for you, but some of the advice that I can give you is make sure you're including full details of people on your form, even if you are estranged from them. Make sure you are totally honest on your form. The vetting manager has said to us, we're not just going to preclude somebody because of their past. They will take each case on its merits. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, I might have this, I was dealt with for shoplifting when I was 12, put it on your form, be absolutely open and honest about it, and then they will assess and let you know whether they're going to give you vetting clearance or not. As you can probably expect, police officers have to be above reproach, and we shouldn't ever have people like that who are able to commit these crimes in the name of policing. Okay, so if you want to have any further information on vetting, if you want to email that email address there, so psdvetting2@cumbria.police.uk, they can answer any specific questions. So if you think, well, I've got this, I've got that, can I ask them a question? You certainly can. Just drop them an email and they can answer any questions for you around that. Okay, so moving on to the slightly lighter side of things then. So looking around specialisms within policing. So we've all got different roles. As you can see here, we're all doing very different things in policing. I give you a little bit of my background. So I've been here for 15 years. During that time, I've spent time as a special constable. I've spent time as a frontline response PC, a response sergeant, a response inspector, and more recently I was an inspector in our control room. So I get to do all the really exciting stuff like firearms command. As the boss does, I get to do managing pursuits. I get to manage incidents that are going on in our control room, and that's one of the specialisms that I've undertaken. But there are plenty of different things you can do when you're in policing. So we've got one of our colleagues, Stefan, now in the picture, a frontline response police officer. So that's something you can stay and choose to do. Absolutely fantastic if that's what you want to do. CID. So that's an option for those of you on the DC route. You can join CID, or you will be joining CID. For those of you that aren't on the DC route, but you maybe fancy joining CID, that's an option for you when you come out of your 2 years. Promotion. So as myself and the boss have done, we've chosen to do our promotion processes and go through that. I keep trying to convince Emma, but she's not keen. So it's an option available to you. You can go for the sergeant's promotion process as soon as you come out of your probation. So 2 years or 3 years, depending on which entry route you're on. You can come and do that. You can get promoted. One of the benefits is there's obviously an increase in pay, but then there's an increase in responsibility as well. I absolutely love being a line manager. I love looking after people. I like making their lives easier and better at work. Hopefully I've done that for the people that I've worked with, but I absolutely love being a leader within this organisation. There are promotion opportunities for detectives and uniform as well. So you can go up through the CID side, you can go up through uniform. There's kind of two different routes there. We've got our stunning colleagues there on roads policing. So my mate Jack there with his lovely white hat on. We've just opened a roads policing command. So you can go and do roads policing, or you can do firearms. They get to drive lovely fast cars. They get to wear those lovely white hats, deal with some of the kind of most serious collisions that happen on the road. Neighbourhoods, as we talked about before, so you can be a community beat officer. The picture on the bottom left there is Appleby Fair. So that was the year before last, where there was a big scale up on Appleby Fair Main Street. So this crowd kind of came down, and the public support unit officers that were there kind of protecting the public. And what I do love about this picture is this gent here who's just kind of nonchalantly stood in his doorway, just wondering what's going to happen. But Appleby is something we police every year, and it's a really interesting event. So that is absolutely everything, and I've got about 3 minutes to spare, so we'll kind of open the floor up. If there's any questions, anything you feel like we haven't answered, if you want to stick it in the chat now, that'd be really good. I will put those links in that I mentioned, just if the boss and Emma, if there's anything you think I've maybe missed just while I'm doing that.